Welcome to the We Love Sport Guinness Six Nations Tour, kicking off here in Walkabout, Cardiff. We are Flats and Shanks, and joining us to begin our tour are two Welsh Rugby legends who need no introduction. That is Centurion Gareth Thomas, a.k.a. Alfie, and Wales' second leading all-time try scorer, George North.
Who's first? Who's the all-time leading try scorer? Shane.
Yeah.
You. Is it you?
No, fuck it's me.
No.
How many are you on, George?
41.
42.
Oh, yeah. How many Shane on? And don't say I don't know. You know exactly.
I do know.
How many do you?
58.
Oh. How old are you?
The fences weren't as good back then, you know.
Yeah, it's true, actually.
Line speed is different, intensity, physicality, very different, you know.
People say, like, you don't have, as long as you're good enough, you're big enough. But I think, we'd all agree that if you'd played back then, you'd have been 158 tries.
Yeah, give or take.
Give or take. Yeah.
Maybe in the Welsh Lomu. Lads, thank you for joining us. We'll kick off to start talking about the Six Nations so far, and we have to talk about the first game up, which was Ireland versus Wales. We were all a little bit nervous going into it, and
I wasn't.
And it appears rightly so, Alfie. Didn't quite go to plan, did it? Was there a plan?
I think that's the thing, is everybody's wondering what the plan was, but it was so difficult, right, to talk about it. And as we were doing the game on Saturday, and they were saying in the years, like, what clips do you want to pick up on Wales? And I was kind of finding it really impossible to find any clips.
The anthem?
Where you could actually talk about Wales to show what they were trying to do. So the really hard thing I found about it is trying to be constructive in your criticism around Wales when there isn't much to talk about. Yeah. And I think that's what's really difficult about it, because you'll take away the shine from what was a totally dominant Irish performance in all areas of the game, and in all possession or both sides of the ball. I think what I found was probably one of the most, I suppose, disappointing factors of it is if you look at the game and you look when the way Ireland came out and they played straight away, and then they came out in the second half and they scored straight away playing a similar style, similar tactic, is as we've all sat here before, we've gone into change rooms or we've gone into huddles during the game and we've kind of realised what is happening in front of us, and we deal with shit ourselves to try and solve the problem. It seems like nowhere in that 80 minutes was there a solution to the problem that Ireland were throwing at them.
Should just kick the coach out.
At half time?
Yeah, like you did. To Mike Ruddock.
Did you? Tell us.
No. That was not at half time. Just clarifying that. I'm just clarifying that. But, and on that point, and again, it's all about ownership, right? It's all about ownership. As there's certain times within a rugby changing room, within a rugby environment, where it's about everything else apart from the players. So it's about what you're representing. And there comes a time where it's just about the players. And at that moment, what was happening was there was massive, massive pressure on us. And our team talk was to get motivated by having the understanding of, you're under pressure, but I'm going to add to that pressure by reminding you there's 3.5 million people waiting back in Wales for this expectancy to win. Yeah. And I wanted us to talk about us and not what was happening back there.
And it worked. When you said it, though, I thought we were going to boycott the game and go on the piss. On the Champs-Elysees. So I got really excited for it. George, Wales were in the game until it kicked off. Were you a bit surprised how slow it took Wales to get into it?
It was tough to watch, really. Yeah. Like, if you were to break it down into aspects, like, you could probably count on one hand how many dominant carries we had, how many phases we actually got through. Defensively, within the system, there was a few big individual errors, which again shows obviously new combinations. Obviously a load of players injured, but sometimes this, as you well know, is back to basics. Sometimes away in Ireland, first round, it's real tough. But like anything, if you haven't got dominant carry, haven't got on the front foot, there's no way you can get into the game and create that speed of ball, that intensity without having that initial hit up. You need that. It's a collision sport. You need to win those collisions to get into the game to really build what we're about.
But I was watching that game thinking, actually been watching Leinster, watching Leinster in Europe, and they played down the road from me in Bath, and all my neighbours went to watch it. They're all Bath fans. They smacked Bath to bits with almost basically the Ireland team, not far off it. And my neighbours are walking back up the road, and I said, how was the game, knowing the score? And they said, you know what? It was a privilege to watch them play. That is one of the best teams we've ever seen live. You watch Ireland smack the All Blacks last autumn, and I look at it and think, well, Wales are missing a few. But, I mean, even for you, Shanks, like you're a pundit, you watch all these games. How would Wales have gone and won that game? It's kind of like, it's tough, isn't it? You got the right mindset, I suppose.
On those days, obviously, when it goes good, it's good. But when it's shit, it tends, nothing really pulls off. And in all fairness, obviously, Wales had their individual errors and their team errors. But when Ireland are playing like that, and they didn't even really pull a shot off set piece, really, did they? They just executed off our mistakes and took the opportunities when they came. I don't think there's not much more we could have done on Saturday to change that. They were always in that mindset of dominant, they're on that front foot. There's talk about that speed of ball, and then when the offloads are going on, it's a tough place to be.
And then I think sometimes it comes back to the point, or people seem to be having this argument now as well, or discussion around, well, if it didn't happen, did it not happen because of the personnel that was selected? And I think there was interesting selections, but it kind of felt like there was Pivac's gone in there as a coach, probably on the back of the way he coached Scarlets to play, which play very much in the wide channels. So if you're going to go in there and try and out-muscle what is probably one of the most physical teams in the world right now, give or take South Africa, then was the selection right? Or was the team that he selected, were they just not able to implement the game plan? And that was to get it away from contact. Because I understand you have to have physical presence on the contact line. Yeah. But do you want to try and stand up to the team that's probably the best at it in the world at the moment and think you're going to come away with a win?
We couldn't get any possession or territory. And part of that was because the attack wasn't functioning. The other part was because Ireland didn't give a penalty away till 48 minutes.
Really?
So, penalties give you territory, they give you possession, don't they? Deep inside team's half, and 48 minutes. And when it was given a penalty, it was reversed because Josh Adams went wild and tried to split Johnny
I watched
Sexton
that,
in half.
and I get the whole thing, like, especially when you play in the front row, we don't even get penalised. It's all about pride and honour and egos in there. Now and again, you see a prop get up and say, the referee tells him what he's done wrong, and he says, all right, sorry, sir, or sorry, man, whatever it is. And very rarely, now and almost invariably, they look hard done by. Right, Josh Adams, he went off, and I think he said, as he ran off, he said, wow. I cannot believe. And I thought, wow. However many million people are watching this, let's say it's 5 million, 4,999,999 don't think you've been hard done by, mate. You're the only bloke who thinks that. Are you mad?
An inch away from a red card.
Are you dizzy, mate? Yeah.
Talking about selection, there wasn't really much Wales could do in terms of selection because there's so many injuries. There was something like 700 caps worth missing, and a lot of top quality players as well, Lions. But Josh Adams in the centre, we spoke about it yesterday. It wasn't as bad, I don't think, as people make out. Its discipline was bad.
Listen, if you take that, take that yellow card, okay, and you know what?
A couple of offside penalties as well.
But just take that yellow card and take that away, right? Yeah. The thing is, I feel like what you've done, we've kind of found someone. We've all just had the ability to point and kind of have a scapegoat, right? Now, to me, it's a real simple, really easy answer to say, drop him for next week because it's a real lazy way, I think, to look at it. Like if someone experiments, like even use rugby as like a metaphor of life. If somebody experiments with one thing, you give them one opportunity and they do it wrong. Say, right, you're never doing that again. Yeah. It's like, right, okay, that's it. It's over. But the reality, as rugby players who have sat in change rooms at the top of the game, if you're given an opportunity and realizing that in that opportunity you've given, everything went wrong. Like the whole team, you could put black marks against the whole team. So it wasn't going right for anyone. Right? But you give them that opportunity again to learn from their mistakes and to improve. And I believe what you find is you usually get the best out of a player in that way.
Yeah.
You know, you'd think, right, okay, I've done an experiment. I have my faith in you as a coach. I have my faith in you as players. I believe in what you could do. I didn't just stand up here and say it's an experiment and because it failed first time. Players go out and perform better when they're under that pressure or they have the faith given back to them by coaches and back to players. I just think it's a real lazy, easy answer to say he failed.
I almost think like if things go that badly for a team or a player, whatever, and it's a case of, well, we've watched this guy every week for the last year, 2 years. We know what he's capable of. He's delivered that, and at this level, it just wasn't good enough. He ran out of puff, whatever it was. Then you can understand, well, we've tried him. We'll leave him out now because we just don't think he's good enough. If you know you've got a load of players who you're used to seeing deliver more than that, and they haven't delivered that, and their egos have been damaged, and their pride's been hurt, and all that stuff, and they've been battered and written off and talked about in disparaging terms because they got well beaten. It could have been a lot more to Ireland, actually. The scramble defence saved them. It's almost like the lads who you know can operate at 8 or 9 out of 10, who are operating at 5 or 6 out of 10, they're almost the lads you pick first. It's like, who would be more motivated next week than Josh Adams to play in that game? He's almost the guy you pick first.
Yeah. What about George? Talk to us about moving from wing to centre and I suppose how different it is for a player. Because Josh has done it at Cardiff and they tried to move him in during the autumn. But did he have COVID or was he injured? Or
He got injured in the warm-up, didn't he?
Yeah.
I think.
But how different is it in terms of positional play, in terms of communication?
Yeah, I guess it is quite different. You know, essentially when the modern game, obviously back three are mobile, they're here, there, and everywhere, and you find yourself, you know, at the back of, you know, forwards, you're here, you know, in and around 9 and 10. But with 13, you know, wing, you have that freedom. You can pop up where you want. You know where you have to be.
Yeah.
With 13, you're not only trying to play within it, you're trying to have structure. So you're not only just doing your own thing, you've got to then control the forwards, which 9 times out of 10 don't really know what they're doing. Maybe 10 times out of 10, certain players. But, you know, you're controlling them. They're in the red. They're blowing out their hoop. They just want to run straight. They don't want to be running any shape. Then you're controlling them. You're looking at speed of ball. You're trying to communicate to everyone while still keeping an eye on the gap that's ready that's there, you know, in that shape. So it is a lot more communication, and it's a different game because you're not busy as you are, but you're just busy organising and controlling, and still I've been asked to make that play and make that pass at like 190 beats.
And also probably, you know, trying to call stuff for the 10 to be their eyes as well.
Yeah, because obviously the 10 has got so much going on anyway, but he wants to know what's going on outside of his V, what he's seeing, and there's so much going on, but also the speed of the international game is, you know, when you go from club rugby, it's rapid. And what I say, if a gap is there, you call some in, you get it all set up, that's gone. It's got to be like straight away. And when you're working in those sort of fractions of seconds, trying to control other people and you, it is a big difference.
So what is it about, right, with the 13 for Wales, right? Because Pivac obviously put you, who's kind of like an out-and-out winger at a certain point, to put you in a 13. He's trying it with Josh Adams when there are arguably 13s who play regularly, say Jonathan Davis or Owen Watkin. He's kind of overseeing them. So what is his version? What does he say? What does he kind of expect for you when you wear the 13 jersey? And why do you think he's sticking with this kind of wing to 13 role?
The honest answer is I don't fully know, which is not a great answer to that. Is I think with Wayne, he's obviously thinking about Six Nations for now. Obviously, it was a very angry start, but he's also thinking World Cup. You know, he's thinking squad selections. He's thinking boys covering 2 or 3 positions, and I think he's just trying to give another string to his bow. I know that he wants like physical guys, turn of pace. So the natural thing, obviously, wingers, quick, you know, physical, want to take people on. He wants that ability to have an extra strike run in the back line is what I think. But obviously, when, like you said earlier, it doesn't just happen overnight. For someone like Josh Adams, who's an amazing player, amazing like athlete, when you got one shot, sometimes like you need a couple of goes to really work out, get in your groove, understand the speed of things. You know, the communication aspect. It takes time, and as you said, to be called, you know, one in, didn't go great, yellow card. It's all his fault. It's extremely harsh.
Well, I blame John Davis, right? Because we've had great centres for a long time, like Alan Bateman and Mark Taylor, and then I came down after that and I created John Davis. But John Davis, there's no legacy after him. So
succession, isn't it? It's succession.
I blame him.
Are you saying John Davis has been a selfish professional and not helped the youngsters coming through?
He's not developed anyone coming through.
Is he one? Oh, you go. I've got a great question to follow on from that.
But this is why we're having to develop wingers, I think, because we're struggling at the moment, I think, for centres. Young centres coming through. And part of it is just getting our best players on the field. Like where do you want to play when you come back? Because
tight head by the quads on it. Squatville.
Number 8, probably. No, I could see.
Have you enjoyed playing in the centre?
I did. Last Six Nations, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It's a position I played at age grade. Through all my age grade stuff, I really enjoyed. And then I only really stumbled onto the wing because at the time of the Scarlets, that summer tour, Morgan Stoddart came back injured, and Sean Lamont came back injured as well. So literally, I played my first year at Scarlets because they literally had no one else. So I had to play. And they were like, oh, well, we'll put you on the wing to help you, and that's basically how it went. But before that, I played a lot of 13 in the centres, and I actually enjoyed that because it's a game that you get your hands on the ball, you're putting people away, you have the ability to attack, but you a little bit more freedom than say at 12. But then obviously as wing. But I can see now and going forward that the transition to 13 may be, for longevity as well, the next step.
I watched New Zealand player Rieko Ioane, who's a stunning rugby player, and sticking him at 13. There are times when it looks inspired, and there are times when you see teams undoing him a little bit, and he's not quite having the same impact. Now, any centre that would kind of happen, but it's almost like an experiment with a super talented, super quick guy that didn't quite work in order to get him in the team because he's so good, but he might not get picked on the wing. But it feels different in Wales. I could be wrong. It almost feels like, difficult for you to answer actually, George, because you're in the mix at the moment, but it almost feels like we kind of need to find a 13 from somewhere. And I know there are other 13s that could have played, but the stone cold facts are all the lads that are fit have been looked at by Pivac and he said, don't think you're good enough. So we're going to try someone out of position because we think he's a good player, good rugby player, and he's quick. Josh, same with George, he's good and he's quick and he's brave and all that stuff. We're going to put him there and hope he learns it quick because we think he could. You lot aren't making the grade. That is ultimately they're just looking for a 13.
I think it is. There's different players that they've tried in the centre and haven't quite worked, and they've got a few caps. But you're not looking and thinking, you're going to win us a Grand Slam or you're going to win us a World Cup. So I think we're having to develop our best players like George and I think like Josh into centres. I think wingers we're okay with, but similarly, I think that with 10s as well at the moment. Dan Bigger is really good, but behind him, I don't think that the quality is there. What about leaders, Gareth? Feels weird calling him Gareth.
I forgot that. Who's Gareth?
Who is Gareth? What about leaders? Missing Alan Wynne-Jones, missing Ken Owens, missing
George North,
missing people that will lead on the field.
Yeah, I think with that is again, it's a very valid excuse, but I don't think we can use it as a reason to justify where we're at. There has to come a time in every team where there's a sense of transition. Now, whether that transition is forced or whether that transition is an option for you.
Just before you carry on, where was it for you? Was it forced upon you when you became captain, or was it something that you wanted to do from your personal experience?
It was actually something that was offered to me, and I think this is the thing with it. This is where I look at leadership. Is people look at players and think, he's not good enough to be captain, or he's not good enough to be a leader. But to be a good captain or to be a good leader, all you have to do is have the ability for people to follow you, and that's by saying and also doing the right things, but more importantly at the right time. And I think what should happen, and what probably will be happening within the camp, is the lack of the leadership that we all know is hopefully the evolution of new leadership within the group, because people have to at certain times now stand up. I'm assuming Alan Wynne would have taken lineouts, would have taken certain team meetings. All of a sudden someone else has to do that, and it's only when you manage to sift through and give people the opportunity do you realise, oh, actually, because I can honestly say, I was really proud to have captained my country, but never in my career in the build-up that did I ever think I had the qualifications to be a captain. But somebody gave me the opportunity, and I realised actually people will listen if you talk quite passionately, or if you plan on what you're going to say. So I think you can sift through and find new leaders, which is what has to happen. You know, we're 18 months away from a World Cup, and a lot of players that are absent at the moment potentially might not be around when it comes to that World Cup, when it comes to that judgment of the World Cup. So you have to nurture new leaders. You have to grow new leaders. So even if we can say like we didn't see them on the weekend, I guarantee you now, and as we all sitting here know, is real leadership, real good leaders decide to stand up when the shit hits the fan. Not when things are going real well and say, I want to be a part of this. Oh yeah, I want to be up there standing when you lift the trophy. It's when you're coming home from Italy and you've lost to Italy, do you realise when you're training on a Monday?
Twice.
Yeah. When you're training on a Monday, do people turn up and say, right, I'm ready for fucking training today? Because we lost to Italy on the weekend. And you kind of feel like you're justified to say, oh, do you know what? I've got a bit of a twinge. I'm not bothering today. But when the people cross the white line on a Monday after losing to it, then you realise who the real leaders are. Then you realise the people who really want to be there. Yeah,
you were a very good leader. I followed you on stage into jumping jacks in a breakdancing competition.
I froze.
You froze.
I froze.
Did you?
Mate, generally. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't even pull a worm out. I couldn't even pull a worm out. I think I got naked. Just get naked. That's a leader view.
Struggled to pull his worm
That's
out
a leader view.
And then I followed him into Eden Park in France and bought the same brown leather coat as him.
I've seen the pictures of those. Big boot cut jeans.
I went on his show, Simbind he does with Gabby Logan on Friday. And the producers wouldn't let me wear a brown tan leather jacket and a Motorhead t-shirt, like the famous one he wore in that Scrum 5 interview. So, like, he's gone on this interview for Scrum 5 after Mike Ruddock's left, okay? He's left Wales. He's left the coaching of Wales, you know. He's just off the back of a Grand Slam. He said, yeah, I'll go on Scrum 5, it's fine. And he's gone around in his wardrobe and thought, oh, you know, this is the biggest interview of my life. 3 million people watching. What shall I wear? Well, I know, I'll wear that black Motorhead t-shirt and that brown David Brent Sergio Giorgini jacket.
You can find them.
And I wanted to wear on his show. On Friday. And the producers wouldn't let me, would they?
That would have been so good.
I know, they wouldn't let him.
That would have been so good.
I know, you did turn a little bit ill after mine.
It's in the Rugby Hall of Fame now.
Is it? Yeah. Before we move, we'll move on from Wales in a minute, but someone sort of prominent Welsh ex-international Lion, how many Grand Slams? 2 double Grand Slam winners. Someone who really knows their stuff said that Wales are not producing any good young players, doesn't see where the next generation of dominant internationals are coming from, watches all the games, just can't see it, and has really put a cat amongst the pigeons in Wales. And it's a shame because he's gone from being someone who was sort of widely respected and often liked to someone who's hated now, despised in Wales, and he seems to be one of those people who just throws comments out there just to offend people. That was Tom Shanklin.
Do you know what it was? I got
Shanks, man. You're like Andy
Hold
Howell.
on. I got too arrogant after slammed. I got too many tweets saying Arsenal would love slam.
Shanks.
And then I had no games because it was European weekend with the URC.
Stay relevant. Stay relevant. What am I going to do? Sitting at home?
All right.
Not working. Everyone's shit.
How did the under-20s get on?
Battered.
Yes. How did Wales get on?
Battered.
How did the regions get on in Europe?
Battered.
Oh, there we are.
How do you like your cod? How do you like your sausage? Yeah, I mean, what do you make of that, George? You're in the mix. You're playing top level in Wales. Presumably,
No,
George.
He can't answer that.
No, George. There are some good young players in Wales, right? I mean, what does he know? This guy.
Well, you know, it's a game of 2 halves. Everyone's trying really hard.
So I'll justify my point. My point was being that in certain age groups, right, you get a lot of players come through at the same era, and you refer back to what you know. So you refer back to like the age group where sort of myself, Dwayne Peel, Stephen Jones, Rhys Williams, all these players, loads of players, Mike Lowen, Gareth Cooper, Gethin Jenkins, Adam Jones, Duncan Jones, all these players came through and were involved with the Welsh team for a long time. Then you had the likes of Warburton, Halfpenny,
Sessions.
Dan Bigger. John Davis. And I'm just looking at the next crop now. And players do come through, but talking about a group of players that will be around for Wales for the next 5 years, 5-6 years, that will play to a quality level. I see players that will get capped, but possibly not going to win massive amount of silverware with it. And that was my worry. I'm not seeing a group, like a crop of players coming through. Which
you know what the thing with that, though, Shanks, right? What I think of that is this has been like a problem within Welsh Rugby for a long, and everyone knows about like this. Welsh Rugby being successful has always managed to paper over cracks. Yeah. That's kind of gone on, right? But all I feel on it is, you know, the Wales Online, all of a sudden now, to me, is not the right time to really chuck the hand grenade and to really stir it. Like that, if that's a problem,
I know that now.
It should. if that's a problem, okay, then sort the problem out. But don't wait until we have like a terrible moment to make it even worse. Yeah. It's like they've sat there, and Shanks has sat there with his keyboard, waiting with his glasses on, waiting for the Wales to lose, going, yeah, you're shit.
I didn't wait for Wales to lose. I did it after Europe when we didn't win a game in Europe.
It's just anyway. You know, it's kicking a load of young aspiring pros when they're down. And how many comments and likes do you get? Do you get any? What are your stats like on it?
I had a couple of people like Peter Jackson like it.
Oh, did you?
Andy Howell loved it.
Good.
Oh, I bet he loved it.
There we are. Well, you can only speak your mind. Anyway, shall we
Eddie Butler?
move on? Shall we move on?
Eddie Butler, do you like it?
I don't think he's on social media.
We'll talk
Not that
about.
kind, anyway.
We'll get past that because that was a one-sided affair. It wasn't that one. We'll get on to Scotland against England. George, interesting one because inevitably, you know, Luke Cowan-Dickie was always going to get grief. You know, sort of 3 seconds after the final whistle, he's tweeted an apology, poor bloke, and I'm sure some people are hammering him. Most people will be behind him, but it's a moment of madness from a top player, from a Lions hooker. It's not like the Josh Adams yellow card. You take the Josh Adams yellow card out, and people, you're right, Alfie, they love to have a dig at that one incident. Remove that 10 minutes, Wales still lose that game to a superior team. But the reality is, you take out the moment of madness from Luke Cowan-Dickie, and it can happen to anyone. He got Finn Russell pulled him one way than the other. He'll probably never be in that spot again, defending. So it can happen to anyone, but you remove that, and it is a different game. So particularly tough sort of weekend for him, wasn't it?
So this is brilliant questions, isn't it? Flipping heck.
Yeah.
Okay.
What was the question?
So the Welsh regions not going great. Right, here we go.
Come for a laugh,
Yeah. So
England lost, though. You must be happy.
as a skill set, that's a very hard skill set to beat.
Yeah.
The pressure, time of the clock, what the game is, as you well know, it's hard enough for a winger at that point. You know, that kick from Finn Russell's bob on. You know, you got Darcy, who's full of confidence, been playing really well. That, you know, for a hooker to be out there, your first thought is like,
Yeah.
in it, right? Face it. If you're even in front row, you're thinking, I want to be anywhere right now, but here. And in all fairness, all he can do is try. And obviously, in that will get blown up, and he's already apologised, which I think is horrendous, and people are having a go. But anyone else in that position, it's a hard place to be when you got all those people watching you, the pressure of the game, and to make it worse, he lands on his coccyx as well, so it's salvage as well. His back's in bits. But again, when you play at international level, this is the 1%ers. These are the margins. You know, these are the quality of the players. To Finn Russell to see that opportunity to put it on him, they've worked him left, right, and come back on that crossfield kick. The speed of ball there, it's a tough place to be. So even if it was, you know, a back three, you know, fullback or wing taking that ball, it's a tough decision. That's going to be like a collision, 50-50. So
I've seen you in positions like that, mind.
I know, so I'm hanging out my hoop. I can't move.
Yeah, do you remember
bench like that. I used to say, put your hand up when you're done, guys. You go, you give 100%. When you empty the tank, you put your hand up. I was like that. I remember in one game, the physios came on. Honestly, in one game, I said, mate, I'm absolutely smoked. And he went, there's 51 minutes gone. I said, I'm smoked, mate. I got to go.
Do you remember you were out in the wing and you had to tackle Epi Taione?
Got him.
Maybe he was a winger for...
Quick, mind. Quick two.
Got him on the drift. When I first met this guy, he's a prop. He's quite a big lad, muscular. He used to train down Enfield track with spikes, Reebok spikes, doing sprints.
Hey, went all right, mind.
Yeah, he did all right.
Until I snapped the Achilles and the arms fell off. Yeah.
Marcus Smith talks to us about his performance at the weekend. Gets the old tactical sub after 60.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we are operating with the benefit of hindsight. So it's easier for us. But I will say that sitting around with a couple of lads, at Murrayfield watching that game live, he came off and he sort of jogged off looking fresh. And I just happened to have been watching him right up until the point he got. So we knew he wasn't injured, is what I mean. We knew he was fit. And as soon as he came off, I just thought, oh no. Because what that means is that he's not trusted yet.
Yeah.
He's not trusted. And I sort of feel like in any position, that would wound you a bit. I'm sure I'd get over it, but that would wound you a bit. Because, right, this is proper tight. This is the game everybody said it would be. And what you're doing, George Ford is an amazing fly half. There's nothing to do with him, really. But what you're doing is you're picking the guy that you didn't pick as one of your 3 fly halves in the squad the other week. He wasn't even one of the 3, George. Left out, 4th choice. So you're taking Marcus Smith off and replacing him effectively with your 4th choice from half. I know it's not as clear-cut as that. But I just thought, George Ford's got a history. He rescued England when Scotland had that amazing comeback at Twickenham in the 38-all job the other year. He came on and rescued England. He's got form against this team. I know that. But I just thought this would be so valuable for England, not just Marcus Smith, for England to have a young bloke who could prove himself on a day like this. And if he doesn't, he's young enough to get over it. And it's round 1, right? So it felt really disappointing to see him come off. And it actually didn't feel that brave. It didn't feel that brave from England. And it was almost a bit like now Scotland, for the last few years really, have been at a point where you've really got to go at them to beat them, especially at home. You've really got to play to beat them. And as England well know now. And I felt like George can do that. George is wonderful. Whatever country on the planet he was from, he would have a lot of caps. Seriously amazing rugby player on the front foot and all that. I just thought taking him off didn't feel right. Lots of people said, why didn't they bring Jamie George on sooner? It's obvious now Luke Cowan-Dickey's done the yellow card thing. I thought Luke Cowan-Dickey was playing really well. I wouldn't have subbed him off. Why would you sub him off if he's playing well? But moreover, I just thought that it's easy to say things like England arrived and just thought they would dominate. I don't expect that at all. You know the lads well enough. They're flat out. They're all at 190 beats per minute, flat out. They just weren't able to physically dominate, really. And it just, once it was tight at the end, George Ford's got all the talent in the world. Give him the right ball, he can win that game for you like Finn Russell did for Scotland. But it was just, when Finn Russell, the one crossfield kick to Duhan van der Merwe left, and the next play bangs one right. So he stretches Marchant, the old mobile back 3 thing. I remember just watching Joe Marchant thinking he's gone all the way over there. He cannot get back to where he's supposed to be. Will Finn Russell spot it? Of course he spots it. He spots everything. And it was actually a really simple bit of genius that undid them. But the sort of the most interesting thing about the game, it wasn't a talking point, was that England dominated territory, dominated possession, didn't score enough points. They had very little to show for it because they didn't quite have the penetration. And then on Sunday, I'm a long answer to this. On Sunday, I watched Manu Tuolangi play, and it was like, holy shit, he is back. He might play in this Six Nations yet, I think.
Well, you're struggling to end that then, weren't you? Now, obviously, Marcus Smith, Flats, he's been winning games as well for Quins in the last 20 minutes. So it was bizarre taking him off.
Yeah.
Alf, do you think, is this going to be Scotland's year? Do you think Scotland, it's the first time they won the Calcutta Cup back-to-back since something like 1984. Is this going to be the year where, they're going to at least challenge for the top of the table?
It's really easy to say that it's potentially the year because they've won their first game, because they've beaten England. And I understand why, because I guarantee you, if Wales had played England on the weekend and we'd scraped a win against England, then everybody'd be saying, look, this is kind of going to be a Grand Slam year. I've always thought when the tournament and the fixtures came out, you always look at the Calcutta Cup and you know that Scotland are going to be in with a shout. Like, you absolutely know that they're going to be in the game. And I've always thought, if it's going to be Scotland's year, it's not whether they can rack a win up, it's whether they can back that win up with another win. Because for years and years...
Not rack, back.
So did it rack and then
really
back?
Worked. I wonder if
Did
that was an accident.
You can use that.
If it wasn't, it was good.
It was no. It just came and rolled out. I think for years now, Scotland have had the potential of doing well in this tournament and have a one-off victory here and there.
Yeah.
So for them, the pressure to come here and get a victory is whether that team has evolved now. have they got the ability to back that victory up with another
Do
one?
you reckon it's up here? Because Scotland haven't won in Cardiff. They won a couple of years ago in Llethley when there was no crowds during COVID. But they haven't won in Cardiff since 2002. So do you think that'll play a factor in it as well?
Like, coming to Cardiff it's a difficult place.
Yeah.
Like, it's a difficult place to come. I know we spoke about it last week. I remember when, and you would have played in that, when was the Wales-England game? When England came down?
Yeah,
13.
Yeah.
And literally, in the stadium, you knew that England were going to lose that game before the ball had been kicked. It's probably one of the first times ever that I've been in an environment and you just realised, saw England walk around the stadium and you just knew that they were done. Like, you knew that the environment had had them. So it's really hard to come here and get a victory because it's an intimidating environment. And I think coming here on the back of what's happened last week, I think will create a more intense atmosphere because the crowd realise that on the weekend they really do have a part to play. And that's not just in supporting the Welsh team, it's in creating this hostile environment for the Scots to be able to perform in as well.
George, Scotland's wingers were brilliant at the weekend. Darcy Graham and Duan van der Merwe. Who would you rather be up against on the wing out of those two? Or who would you rather not be?
I'm at 13 now anyway.
Either answer will give you the other answer, won't it?
I just realised that.
I can't win this answer, can I? I think great Darcy Graham play on the weekend. I thought he was incredible. Going forward, footwork, and he's just a tough player. He's the kind of guy that you have to go at him, but he'll step you. And then if you give him space, he'll step you. So very much, you kind of like Shane-esque. You just have to go at him and hope for the best. Yeah,
you'd probably rather tackle a big bloke than someone like Darcy Graham.
The problems are like it's a bit like George. When big blokes have got footwork, I mean, there's more to get hold of. But what you really want, people often ask who's the hardest people to play against and all that, and you might differ. But it's like if someone is massive and confrontational and comes straight at you, that's beautiful. As long as you've got the courage to collide, that's lovely. It's when people try and embarrass you by running around you, and Darcy Graham to be a handful.
But it's like with Jonah Lomo. Like, I know he was a big guy and he could run over you, but he was so difficult to stop because he was big, fast, footwork. But he had amazing footwork, and you could usually only grab one leg because his footwork would always take one leg away from you.
Do you reckon Eddie Jones will make many changes for Italy? Do you think it'd be like an experienced team, or do you think it'd be full guns ahead?
Well, the thing is, if you're a punter like we all are, what you want him to do is start, because I say this, and it's not a snidey comment, but really England should be able to pick any combination of players roughly in the right positions from their extended squad and beat Italy with a bonus point, because Italy are a long way behind where England should be, right? So that's just what I think. So, but it's easy to say, well, pick Harry Randall, pick Simmons at 8 or 6, and pick Don Brandt at the other 6 or 8. Leave Curry at 7. These are nice ideas. It's a nice idea to get Jack Noel back in the starting team. Maybe give Max Malins a run at 15 and all that. Jack Noel, for me, the outstanding substitution story at the weekend was Marcus Smith. The second most interesting one was Jack Noel not getting onto a game where he would have been an absolute handful earlier. But we're all wise from the sidelines. But it's a nice idea. But they've now put their top team out and lost. So do you then leave the guys who've had that horrible experience out for a week, or give them a chance to build some momentum? Everyone talks about momentum in the Six Nations. You boys have won Grand Slams. You know about it more than anyone. But give them a chance to generate a bit. Or do you stick 5 or 6 other lads in and say, state your claim? Because I think whoever we think Eddie Jones should pick, and I think he should do that with the back row. I think he should do that with Noel and Malins probably. I think he should do that at scrum half. I think he probably should play Mark Atkinson from Gloucester at 12 and Slade at 13, where I prefer him at 13. Whatever we think Eddie should do, he won't do that. So we should stop talking about it, in which case he might do it.
Last game of the weekend was France versus Italy. What do you make of that, George? France didn't look like they got out of first gear, really, but comfortably won.
Yeah, pretty much. They summed that pretty well, to be honest. The pack is physical, as we know.
Yeah.
They'll come at you all day. Set piece was dominant. And then obviously the defence from Sean Edwards just reached through, and obviously defence wins the ball back, score tries, and it was a very dominant
How much of an
performance.
effect do you think Sean Edwards has had in that French team, obviously with your own experience? I mean, even when I mention the name, I can see you quiver a little bit.
No.
Getting
No,
goosebumps already.
Sean is... I can't obviously vouch for what his French is like at the moment, knowing what Sean is like. And I do remember when he said he was...
Anglais, anyone?
Well, he did say you only need 3 words in French for defence, but he didn't tell me what those 3 words were. So, but he did say that. But you can see the impact it's having. You know, that big line speed, big physicality, that get in the face, get the ball back real early to allow what is an amazing attacking team loose. And as you saw, when they get in that rhythm, the Ajoué, the offload game, you know, picking players out, you know, it's a great performance from them.
I've got a niche question. Gael Fiku, bigger bloke than he looks. We agreed. We saw him in Japan. Big bloke. He came onto the scene however long ago, 7, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, whenever it was, and it was like, wow. Because I don't know. I know you're 18 months younger than me, George. You're about 10 years younger than Shanks. But we used to watch, like, you know, you play against Yannick Josion and those guys and Damien Try, and it was like, these guys are so good. They're big, they're athletic, they're so good at keeping the ball alive and all that stuff. And it's like, who's going to replace this? And Bastereau was there for a while in the midfield, and you thought, well, he does what he does, but he's not conning anybody, really. He's just battering people when he gets a chance. But then Gael Fiku arrived, and you were like, kind of like, wow. And then I found myself saying last season, he never really sort of came through, and someone said, he's got 60 caps and he was like shortlisted for World Player of the Year or something like that. I was like, oh, right, I sort of must have missed that. But you're playing against this guy. Is he the sort of Rolls Royce of centres that we all thought he would be, or might he have kicked on a little bit?
I think he's doing all right. I'll be brutally honest.
Yeah, doing a lot better than me, George. That's what you're trying to say. I know what you're trying to say.
Do you know what? He's one of those guys you look as a opposition, you think, well, again, like, how do you stop him? He's quick, he's got good footwork, he's got a good fend. He's one of those really annoying guys that's absolutely blipping, but he doesn't look like he's even trying to go fast. You're like, what is going on? Defensively, again, I know Sean's made him his defensive captain, and that really brought that aspect of his game on, controlling that. And he is one of the best centres, and you can see why. Like on the weekend, the way he was playing, it was just freedom, isn't it?
Alf, do you reckon the mentality in French rugby has changed? Because obviously you played over there with Toulouse, and it seemed to be a little bit more relaxed back then. Do you think there's a different mentality now?
Oh yeah, hugely. And I think one of the biggest, shifts in French rugby has been from their ability to defend their home turf. Like, you know, even in club rugby, you would never lose at home, regardless what team came. And if you were playing away the week after, do you know what? You say, right, we may even send our second team and give everyone a rest, because we're not expected to win away from home. And I think within the French club rugby system, that has changed. And I think that's one of the biggest things that has transferred also into the national team, is they've always had the ability, and when they turn up, as it used to be, when the French team turned up, whether they were home or away, if they felt like they were going to play and things were clicking, they'd play. If it weren't going their way and they were away from home, then, do you know what, they don't really care. And I think that what they have now is very much a professional mental mind, and I think that's transferred from this culture within the club game to allow to defend your home territory and not worry about away, brought it into the international arena. And I think now they're very much more of a professional outfit.
Do you know, I remember playing years ago as a young bloke against a Toulouse side, playing against a France A side. I was like 19 or something, and playing against all these guys that play for Toulouse, and played against them in Blagnac in the south of France. And it was like almost unregulated violence for an hour and a half. It was unbelievably aggressive, like to the point where first 20 minutes, genuinely, don't mind admitting it, really intimidating, because it was like, none of us, you know, everyone can have a scrap if you really have to, or you fancy whatever. This was running across the field and finding yourself seeing stars because someone's run past and knocked you out from behind and when you're on the way down, someone boots you up the arse. And I remember having someone kick me in the coccyx. And the video showed it kicked me on the way down from someone else. One knocked me out from behind and one kicked, one of those jobs. And then a few weeks later, playing against those guys in Toulouse, against Toulouse. And oh my God, it was, this was a much bigger game because it was Heineken Cup and it wasn't a little Friday night A game that was not even on telly. And it was exactly the same. It was like there were no cameras. They then have a couple of results, don't really go their way. We play them at home, pretty much the same team, internationals everywhere. And honestly, it was like we were playing against a completely different set of men. They looked the same, and there was absolutely nothing in them at all. It was so strange. These were legends of the game. These are some of my heroes. Played against them in France, savage. Play against them in England, Monday night touch session. It was unbelievable. And that has changed. And I've got, some guys along the way and guys that I've played with and played under and stuff now coach over there. And they said it's almost this generation coming through now. He said he's in strength and conditioning, and he said it's almost this simple. It's not quite this simple, but you almost look at the lads from 20 years, some wonderful players, but 20 years ago, but you look at the lads now and the nick they're in, not like they're all freaks, but the nick they're in, you can't get into that sort of nick unless you are a proper committed pro. And it's just taken France a bit longer to realise that. And he said, you often have, he said on the bus, he goes, we've still got challenges. We've got a no junk food rule on trips to away games on buses. So you stop at the services, no junk food. And you've got lads getting off and they remember no junk food. Yeah, too right. No junk food, boys, all smoking. But it's like, so you're allowed to smoke, you drink coffee and not hydrate, but you're not allowed a burger.
Do you know what? We went, when I joined Toulouse, they were saying join Toulouse because it's like, it's the Milan of the rugby world. And genuinely we had the best changing rooms. We had like the best training facilities. We had like 3G. We talking like 15 years ago. We had all the best. Do you know what we didn't have? A gym. There was no gym in the whole of the club. Nobody did weights. Like there was not a gym. They used to go to a swimming pool. We go under, put your shoulders under the water, go like this. Like that. I swear to you, that was, like we talked, Pelouse, Yannick Georgian was there, Yannick Younger, Fred Michalak, Elisald, they were all there. Cedric Heymans, Vincent Clerc, Clement Portneau, not a gym in sight. Not a gym in sight.
Sean Edwards reckons the hardest thing he had to do with it when he got involved with the French team was stop them smoking, at lunchtime and drinking too many espressos. Right, we're going to have to bring this to an end. Predictions for the weekend: France versus Ireland in Paris. Big one, that.
Predictions don't work.
Who's going to win?
They don't work. I think France will win. But they'll have to go up 2 or 3 levels if they're going to win.
George?
I'd say, knowing going to Paris, I think they'll come out of second gear. Maybe go through the gears. I think Paris will win. Paris the winner. France.
Paris 2-0.
Rugby's the winner.
2-0.
Yeah.
France in Paris will win.
Yeah, I think France.
Yeah. Okay. Same.
You?
Yeah, same.
All right.
Same. You said Ireland earlier. Change your tune.
I know I have. Yeah, I said Ireland this morning when Shanks asked me. That's the point. I know, that's the point.
No,
I thought this morning.
But it's so tough, isn't it? Because it's going to be so close. What about...
I'm drunk now.
Off the fumes.
Yeah.
What about Wales v Scotland?
Everyone always says, I think if that so-and-so win, it'd be good for the game, good for the tournament. Given
Given where you are.
I just can't give short answers to anything. What time is it? Well, it depends on perspective.
What is time?
What is the time? What is time? Yeah, I mean, as a concept, I'm not sure. Do you know Colonel Gaddafi, when he, a few years after he gained power in Libya, decided to change, he basically changed the names of some months. He changed names to months of one of his sort of favourite philosophers or his military heroes. We're not calling it August anymore. We're calling it Nasser, because a favourite sort of former Libyan leader. He did all sorts of crazy stuff, like he said, and we're doing dates wrong. The whole world operates by the same calendar. He said, no, we're doing it wrong. We're not starting January to December anymore. We're going to start here, where the sort of pilgrims began their journey to Mecca or something. That's when the year starts. 3rd week of March, that's the 1st of January now. But it's not called January, it's called Steve. It was like that. Anyway. So I'm like Gaddafi, only in a pub.
Freddie Burns?
You ever noticed? Yeah, Freddie Burns looks exactly like Gaddafi.
Wales, Scotland.
Not now.
Back to it.
Wales, Scotland, Scotland.
Feel free to empty your glasses over him, honestly.
I'd quite like Wales to win. My mum was conceived in Pontypridd. Anyway, think about that.
Might have been here.
How would you follow all of that then?
George?
I think Wales will win. I
Why?
think there has to be a reaction, and there will. And I'm sure that this week will be a big step up, and there has to be really to keep the Six Nations alive. So I would say Wales.
Wales.
Yeah, I agree. Everything he said. I think Wales will win.
England.
Yeah. England.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There we are. That was predictions.
We've lost a bit of energy as it's gone
and
on.
Then, last one now. Who's going to win the tournament? Doesn't have to be a Grand Slam, just who's going to finish number one? Ireland. But they're going to lose this weekend to France.
No, I think they'll beat France. Okay.
Steve.
It's on the third of Gary, isn't it? They're playing the third of Gary, yeah.
Yeah, George, who do you think's going to win it? And you can't say Wales. We'll give you that. You're not allowed to say Wales. You have to say someone else, just in case you get hammered when you go back into the squad.
Yeah, you know, Ireland.
Ireland. Okay.
I think France.
Yeah, I think France.
Thank you for tuning in to our latest stop on the We Love Sport Guinness Six Nations Tour. Head to the We Love Sport website and book your place to catch the Guinness Six Nations and all the best sporting action.